more importantly for this show, we've got very interesting guests. I think what I do like is nowadays we're exploring Islam in a very different manner. Like, we're more active. We want to know what happens on a day-to-day basis, how Islam affects that, whether it be through travel, history, finance. And our guests bring a lot of that to the show today. But the person we have today, the first guest, he is, you know, he's no stranger to Channel S. He's been on Channel S. He was one of the first guests that I interviewed when I first joined Channel S for the Saturday show. And lucky for me today, I get to interview him again, but for something really interesting. And I welcome today Tharik Hussain.
Thank you so much for having me on again.
Very welcome. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very, very excited, as you pointed out, because, of course, today we're going to have a world exclusive on Channel S.
It is exactly that.
Yeah.
But just for the people watching who might not know Tharik Hussain, but they should really know him, because if you don't, you should look him up, because he's on Wikipedia, he's on Google, he's everywhere. He's everywhere. But he is, of course, an award-winning historian, a travel writer, and of course, now he's on the show. He's going to tell us about what he's been up to.
Indeed, and I'm going to tell you about my new book,
Yes.
which, of course, is set to come out on December the 4th. It's called Muslim History.
Right.
I mean, sorry, I got my own book name wrong. Muslim Europe. It's about Muslim history. Muslim Europe, a journey in search of 1400 years of history. Mm-hmm. And today, right here on the table, we have the first physical copy of the book.
I'm so excited.
So you are going to be the first people to see the actual book in the flesh and blood. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Do we get a drum roll, or we just...
I'll just do the one.
Ready, and...
Oh my God, stunning. I love it. I love the colours. It's beautiful.
So there it is. This is the first time anybody is seeing it in the physical form. And you can see it's, even if I say so, the people at Penguin have done a marvellous job. It really is very, very beautiful. We have a very important mosque at the front there. And, you know, you've got some wonderful endorsements at the back there.
Perfect.
So, yeah, there it is.
So can you read one of the messages on the jacket?
Yes, so I'm very, very honoured, because I've had some amazing people endorse this. They've read the book and they've obviously said some wonderful things. I guess the biggest name here is probably William Dalrymple. Most of our viewers will know he's the huge historian of primarily India, is what he covers, and he says this is a vital, important and sharply observant new voice. In an age of growing Islamophobia, when ignorant commentators constantly depict Muslims as the other, as dangerous outsiders, Hussain reminds us of the long history and the complex, mixed syncretic culture of European Islam. And I think, William's words are very much on the money. This is the reason, of course, that the book was written. And my friend Sophie Roberts has also said some lovely things, which I'd like to read as well. And it says, she said, Tharik Hussain is just the kind of travelling companion we need in polarised times like these. Curious, empathetic, erudite, and she goes on to say, an absolutely fascinating book, expertly threading past and present with a revelatory light. And what's nice is William is a historian and Sophie is a travel writer.
Right.
And I'm kind of both.
Exactly.
And that's why it's really, really lovely to have both of them say such nice things about it.
And I mean, I don't blame them. I think the books are amazing. The ones that we've had before as well, absolutely amazing. And I think what's really nice about the work that you do is you touch upon your journey in each one. So what was the journey like when you wrote this book?
So this journey, as you've pointed out, I've been privileged enough to come here onto Channel S, the most popular British Bangladeshi channel. It's such an honour to be able to do this on this station. And in the past, when I brought my books over, it's been the one where I've gone and explored the Balkans, because we have the living indigenous European Muslims over there. And what this book really does is it tries to go back to the origins and the roots of when Islam first comes into Europe. And of course, the most important thing here is to point out that there are 1400 years of Islamic history here in this country. In this continent. And the journey starts in Cyprus. Then I make my way over to Sicily, Malta, Portugal, and then Spain. And it's through exploring what we would probably now call mostly places of memory that I try to weave together not only how Islam came here, but how it completely revolutionized the continent.
And What's something that you've found very interesting? If there's something that you give a snippet out of.
In terms of the histories,
Yes.
Well, the approach I take with this book is it's to try and counter the existing histories on Europe, which are from a very Eurocentric, post-Christian perspective,
Right.
and that's inevitable.
Yeah.
You know, that's what Europe was. But what that means is all the popular histories tend to leave out the Islamic history of Europe
Right.
for various reasons. And by going from the perspective of exploring this history through Muslim European historians,
Right.
Muslim travelers like Ibn Jubair, who travels through Sicily, Al-Makkari, who writes about the history of Spain, I end up with a perspective that completely flips the existing narrative. So many of our viewers will know about Spain, Andalusia,
Yes.
and they'll know that, Tariq ibn Ziyad comes along in 711 and we conquer Spain. What's interesting is when I'm looking at this history through Muslim historians and Jewish historians is it's less of a conquest and almost more of a, to use a modern term, almost more of a liberation
Right.
of the Jewish community that is there. Because actually, when we look at the condition of the Jewish communities already in Iberia at the time, what is now Spain and Portugal,
Right.
they are really suffering under the Visigoths, the Jewish historians and the Muslim historians, they talk about the Jews reaching out to the Muslims.
Right.
And in fact, Al-Makkari says every time they take one of these cities, because they take the whole peninsula rapidly, and everyone, historians are like, wow, how did they do that? Well, every time they took one of these, the Muslim historian Al-Makkari tells us
Yep.
they left the Jews in charge. Then they went and took the other one and left those Jews in charge, and then they went and took another one.
Wow.
So it was more of a collaboration. And this is the kind of different perspective that this book offers. Another place that I go to is Cyprus. Which completely gets overlooked when we're discussing Muslim history in Europe. And in fact, the picture on the front cover is probably the most significant place in Cyprus. Cyprus often gets dismissed as, somewhere where there were Arab raids.
Right.
Some Muslims came and they did some things and went off. But actually, Cyprus was the first place that Muslims arrived in Europe. And they arrived around 647. Now, the mathematicians out there will know that is within 15 years of the Prophet ﷺ's death.
Yeah.
But not only that, in Cyprus are buried people who are related to the Prophet. So we have the first generation of Muslims in Europe. So that place there on the front cover is known as Hala Sultan. It's in Larnaca. It's a masjid, it's an Ottoman era masjid, but there's a tomb in there
Right.
that is reportedly the final resting place of Haram, who was an actual aunt of the Prophet. Now, just have a think about that. That means, like I said, right away, immediately, we are European. And in the past, we're not looking at it like that at all. And we're not even talking about it. But the other interesting thing about the Cyprus expedition is you have the very first Muslim navy is created to take the island.
Yeah.
And of course, the Muslim navy goes on to become one of the greatest naval presences throughout history. And it's because they take that island, because they have a navy, that the rest of the conquests or the rest of the expeditions are able to take place. So Cyprus is a place that I try to put into a much more important role in the book as well.
Amazing. Well, we do have some pictures, luckily enough, and I think we're going to have a look at it, but obviously we're going to discuss the book whilst we're doing that, because why should we not give them a bit of a snippet, the viewers,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
But why is this book so important now? Why do we need to discuss the history behind,
The Islamic history of Europe.
history? Yeah, exactly.
I think this is the most pertinent point here. There was a sense of urgency for me when I was writing this book. Unfortunately, we seem to be living through unprecedented times when it comes to Islamophobia
Yes.
in this country and across Europe.
Yes.
Very, very recently, we had the far right marching through the centre of London. We
Yep.
had a Belgian politician, God knows what he was doing here, turn up and tell us the problem is Islam, that Islam doesn't belong in Europe.
Right.
Now, this tells you just how badly European history has neglected Islamic history. You've got people here telling us 1400 years after Islam has come to Europe and Muslims have been European that we don't belong here. So not only is this book important so that that kind of ignorance can be addressed, but as we were saying beforehand when we were talking in the green room, the issue is many of the Muslims of Europe don't know this to be able to counter this. And many of the Muslims are therefore not able to feel like they belong either. So it's both sides of that coin. And this is what the urgency is about, because Muslims are not going anywhere.
Of
These
course.
people can shout as much as they want. Muslims are going to be here because we've been here for 1,400 years. There are indigenous European Muslims. There are Muslims like you and I who may have come as a result of migration. We're not going anywhere. And this history means it's going to help us feel more like we belong here, but it's also going to help some of these ignorant people to realise that what they're saying is nonsense.
True, of course. And I mean, I know during your journey, you've met a few Bangladeshis as well.
Yes.
So do you want to touch up on a bit that?
Yes, so I mean, everybody knows we're great travellers. We're all over Europe in that respect. And I'm sure when I was naming places like Sicily, people were thinking of their Sicilian, Bangladeshi Sicilian cousins.
I was thinking of my cousin. I was actually thinking of my cousin.
Absolutely, we've got relatives there as well. So I met Bangladeshis in Sicily. You know, they live in places like Palermo. You know, I went to a lot of the masajids. But the most significant moment in the book is actually towards the end.
Right.
When I'm in Madrid. And I actually, you know, end the book with a relative of mine who's in Madrid. And, you know, we're there in Madrid, and Madrid is really, really important because it's the only Western European capital city that was founded by Muslims. So we have Sarajevo, but that's in Eastern Europe. But Madrid was also founded by Muslims, and it was known as Almayrid. And so I'm with my cousin, and I'm showing him some of the few remnants left. I think one of the pictures came up where you see a wall that was built by one of the emirs of the Umayyads back in the 10th century. You know, we're having a look at the walls and everything else, and he's feigning interest. And then later he takes me to his part of Madrid, and it was almost like walking through 1980s Brick Lane, except it was sunnier and much prettier. But what I mean by that is, you know, they've created their own little Bangla town. They've got these wonderful restaurants. People are eating outside. Some of the restaurant names are things like Shapla and Calcutta. And,
interesting.
You know, and even down to the menu, they've got dishes which were created over here, like chicken tikka masala. So I was like, this is very strange. It was like somebody
you never left home.
It was like somebody called their cousins in the UK and said, "Oh, give us the menu. We'll do the same stuff over here." But what's interesting is when I'm with these guys, having spent so much time, you know, across Europe, trying to understand Islam and its memory and trying to belong. It was actually when I was with them that I really felt at home. But what was interesting is because they are the first generation there, they weren't really that interested in this stuff, you know, because like our father's generation, you know, belonging here wasn't that important. They still felt like they belonged in Bangladesh. But what I say in the book is, really, this book isn't for them. It's for their children. Because when their children grow up and they're looking for ways to belong in Spain and they're looking for ways to belong in Europe, that's who's going to need this.
Amazing. And why do you think we've only just discovered this history now, very quickly, because I know we don't have much time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we've got
and you've just asked me the biggest question.
Yeah.
But we'll go with it very simply. I mean, everybody will understand this when I say, you know, if you think of the kind of historic battle that took place in Europe between Christendom and Islam, it was Christendom that won, shall we say, even down to the Ottomans falling at the end. And so who writes the history? The winners write the history. So this is the simple answer. The complicated answer is things like, you know, from the Crusades onwards, there is a narrative of anti-Muslim hate throughout Europe. And in fact, in the book, I say that this is the beginning of what I call an anti-Muslim DNA that runs through the modern European identity.
If anything, it's good that you didn't give us the big answer. We're now going to have to buy the book. We're going to have to buy the book.
Well, absolutely. I'm not going to give it all away now.
No, of course. Yeah. So where can we buy the book? When can we start buying the book, actually?
Yes, so the book comes out on the 4th of December.
Okay, exciting.
And so it'll be available everywhere at that point. You can pre-order it now online. And of course, even if you're in Europe, you can pre-order it there as well. And I'm launching the book on the 4th of December at the London Muslim Centre in Whitechapel.
Inshallah.
So if anybody's watching, they're welcome to come and join. We have a large space there. And that will be the first time they'll be able to get signed copies of the book.
Of course. And if you just want to repeat the name of the book for the viewers.
It's called Muslim Europe, A Journey in Search of a 1400-Year History.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And congratulations again.
And thank you so much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure.